You're listening to the Exhibitionist Podcast, hosted by Nicola Reader and brought to you by inspiringexhibitors.com and Pro Extra, a wholly owned subsidiary of 12th Man Solutions Limited.
I'm your host, Nicola Reader, and as always, we are delighted to have you joining us, so thank you so much for your support. We are recording this on a very snowy day up in the northeast of England. It's the kind of day where I'm thinking I should be lying on a sofa, eating chocolate and watching Christmas movies. So hopefully you haven't had too disrupted a journey to work this morning. And if you're exhibitioning anywhere, I hope you got there safely. So shortly in today's episode, we'll be handing over to a conversation we had with Lee Alley of Expo Stars, who we share an awful lot in common with. But before we get to that conversation, we wanted to share with you the launch of a new initiative from Pro Extra this week, which we are really excited about. And that's Exhibitions 2025, which is a global survey we are conducting in conjunction with the UK Centre for Event Management, which is based at Leeds Beckett University. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, oh my God, another survey in the exhibitions industry. And there is a lot of research out there, and it's brilliant. But what we found over the years is that some of that information and research can be skewed quite strongly towards an organiser perspective. So it's a lot based around revenues and the perceptions of the industry and how organisers are feeling about things. And as you'll know from us at Pro Extra, we're all about helping exhibitors and inspiring exhibitors to be able to get a better return. So that's really what our survey is grounded in. We're trying to get to what are the things that have a real impact that maybe an exhibitor can learn from, or what are the things that they can understand that they need to get ahead with, be that innovation or new ways of engaging with audiences, to make sure that over the next few years, up to 2025, they can really be making the most of those opportunities that exhibitions give them. We are looking to involve the whole of the supply chain. So whether you are an organiser, a supplier, a venue, a visitor, a stand designer, and even an exhibitor, you can all absolutely be involved in this. You've all got lots of value that you can add from being at the forefront of exhibitions over the years that will bring real clarity and an understanding and a different perspective to help exhibitors do exhibitions better. What we're thinking is through this research, we can help exhibitors understand what the big trends are going to be, how they do things better, what visitors are really looking for, what are the tips and techniques that will help them, that will help ensure that exhibitors keep investing in exhibitions and trade shows over the next 5, 10, 15 years, which actually helps benefit all of us. So how do you get involved? Well, this week you'll be seeing a lot of activity from us via social media, via our newsletters, via the podcast, which will give you all the links to the online survey, which is the first stage. And that's going to take about 5 minutes for you to complete, and that'll be open round about till the end of March. After that, we go through a process of analysing that data, picking out what the key trends are. We've done a pilot study and we've had about 30 responses, and already there's some very interesting and unexpected responses from that. So when hundreds of you have responded, we think we're going to get some really, really interesting data. So ourselves and the UK Centre for Event Management will sit down and just have a look at what do we think are the big themes. As part of the survey, we're asking you as the final question if you would be happy to participate in a short 15-minute telephone survey where we'll just follow up and do a deep dive into some of the themes that we think are coming out from that research. So hopefully a lot of you will be happy to do that, and we'll follow up those telephone interviews across kind of April, May time. And then our summer will be spent writing up that research. The culmination of that will be a number of different ways. So we are currently working with Leeds Beckett and with the Centre for Event Management to look at the speaker platforms, so lots of industry conferences that we can share some of these results to. And the research that we share there might be more appropriate for the organiser audience, perhaps if that's the event we're going to be at. And we'll be releasing a series of white papers for exhibitors, for suppliers, based on the research and the findings, to help share that really valuable 360 insight we've got from right across the industry. So it's a really exciting time. Obviously, it all depends on your participation and being really honest. You know, the questions you might think are quite similar to some you might see in other surveys and other questionnaires that you fill out. But what we're asking is really think about it from an exhibitor's perspective. How do we help them demonstrate that they're getting a better return on the events that they're investing in to help unlock that budget and unlock that investment for many years to come. So if you don't see any of our links and you want to get involved, please do just get in touch with us and we will send you the online survey and get involved. Please spread it far and wide to as many people in your own organisation as you possibly can and encourage them to get involved. And we can't wait to hear from you. So thank you for getting involved in anticipation on that one. So over to our conversation with Lee Alley, who I mentioned is the founder and MD of Expo Stars, a consultancy that's very similar to our own, where we are helping exhibitors to drive a better ROI from their events, whether that be through training or consultancy, or even providing staff for events. But we are talking to Lee specifically in this conversation about how to identify and target your key audience at an event. So over to Lee. So on this week's episode of the Exhibitionist Podcast, we are excited to be speaking to Lee Alley, who is the founder and MD of Expo Stars over in Manchester. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. Glad to have you here. Just before we get into chatting today, Lee, just talk to us a little bit about your business and how you've developed your business and what are the main services you now offer for your clients.
Sure. Well, I founded Expo Stars 12 years ago after a visit to an exhibition in Chicago. And it was one of those moments where you have a light bulb moment and you think, why didn't I think of this before? And it was so obvious. So I was working for a software company. We were at an exhibition in Chicago at Navy Pier. I remember it very well. And we took the exhibition stand at the last minute, and we were stuck at the back of the hall. And of course, as you know, if you're stuck at the back of the hall, traffic is minimal. So I decided to take a walk around the exhibition, and it just transpired that obviously there was not a lot of engagement. All the people were behind their tables waiting for people to come to them. And then there was this one stand that really stood out. What they were doing was really engaging with everyone, taking the step out, saying hello, and trying to get to know all of the attendees. And I got approached, and within 6 minutes, they knew who I was, what I was doing at the show, what my challenges were with the CRM software, and they actually demonstrated all the key benefits that were appropriate to me. And I thought, what a wonderful way to engage people. They have a clear process, and they're actually making a real go of this. And having been in sales and marketing for most of my life since I was 20, I thought, what a brilliant idea. And I really got the concept, and I came back to the UK and I thought, this looks like a great idea. And at the same time, my contract with the software company had come to an end, and I was scratching around with what to do. And I thought, why not? I knew some presenters of television production stint I had, and I thought, let's give this a go. And Expo Stars was born. So the idea was to help exhibitors to engage face-to-face with their target audience effectively, and to help them generate qualified sales leads. And then I got my first project within 2 weeks of starting the company, and we haven't looked back since. So since then, over the last 12 years, up to now, we've done over 3,000 projects in over 100 cities in 53 countries at the last count, I think. So these days what we do is we focus on helping exhibitors with their exhibition strategy, helping them to engage with their target audience. We provide specialist booth professionals like presenters, engagers, booth staff to help them execute that engagement. And then obviously we help them with measuring how well they've done or how badly they've done. Obviously, if they're using us, then they won't have done badly at all. So yeah, that's what we do, and we work with all the stakeholders in the exhibition industry. So we support exhibit houses with their projects. We work with exhibitors directly. We work with consultants, and what we try to do is add value to that exhibition process by looking at that journey and making sure that there is a lot of proactive engagement in that process.
Yeah, born out of the same sort of frustrations really as ourselves when we decided to kind of move the business more into the exhibition side of things, where that frustration of walking a show floor, seeing really, really disengaged exhibitors that you just know have spent a fortune on building a stand and getting their staff there and, trying to recruit all these people, and then just kind of not knowing what they're going to talk about, not really knowing where to start a conversation. So it's, and 12 years on for you, you still see, I guess, as you walk the show floor at many an exhibition, lots and lots of disengaged exhibitors.
Absolutely. I was just at an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was amazing seeing a lot of exhibitors. And a lot of these exhibitors have spent, like you say, 50 up to £100,000 being there, but the lack of engagement is just staggering to see. And I think what the issues are that, number one, exhibitors don't want to change because they've done an exhibition a certain way and that's all they know, and they're afraid of change. So they leave it at that. And then the second thing is the mentality of let's build it and they will come.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that happening, and it's quite frustrating. And obviously, it's up to us, like yourself, Nicola, and ourselves, to actually educate exhibitors to say that it is a brilliant opportunity to get in front of your target audience and really promote your business and inform the marketplace of how good you are.
Absolutely. And you use the phrase there, target audience, which is something we really wanted to focus on for kind of the core of the podcast today, because I think that's where we can really help our listeners the most. So it is all about finding that target audience, those people that you really want to speak to. So if you're an exhibitor and you're thinking of going to your big industry trade show and you want to meet the right people there that you can do business with, how would an exhibitor start defining who their target audience is?
That's a great question. And it all starts with your existing customer base, because once you actually know who you're doing business with, you can actually get a sense of who your ideal customers are. And then one of the key things that a business can do is actually ask their customers why they actually do business with them and what value do they get out of doing business with you. So once you have that understanding of who your existing clients are and why they do business with you, that goes a long way towards informing you of who your target audience is. So you can then define the job titles, what kind of business, is it business owners that you deal with? Is it the middle management, or is it the operations team or the marketing team? So you can actually define the job roles that you normally deal with on a day-to-day basis. You can get a sense of how you actually can help them as well. I think one of the biggest challenges that exhibitors face is that they're so busy promoting their products and services that they don't realize what the actual end client is actually looking for in terms of how they can actually help them solve their problems. And I think once you've actually defined the job role, so in the digital marketing world, you'll see a lot of companies building personas. So they will look at how they think, their age groups, what their hobbies are, what their interests are. And similarly, on a face-to-face level, once you understand who your target audience is and who you're doing business with, you can arm yourself with that information. And then the next step is doing some research with the exhibition organizer and actually identifying how many of those people are actually exhibiting at the event.
Yeah, I think a really great point you made there was about asking customers for feedback about what benefits you bring and what value they get from you, because when you ask that question, you can quite often uncover something that you didn't even realize that you did. It's something that's just kind of second nature, or a value or a benefit that you didn't even realize you were giving to customers. And actually, once you know that, you can use it in a really powerful way to try and attract some new ones. So I think we can always be a little bit scared almost of asking a customer, what do you think of us? But if they keep coming back to work with you and to spend money with you, they're obviously pretty happy with what you're doing.
Absolutely. You must be doing something right. And, a lot of us business owners and business people, we get so caught up in the day-to-day running of our businesses and going about our jobs that we actually forget sometimes what value we bring to clients. And clients are always there to actually help you grow your business as well. They see the value in terms of what you're giving them. And they're always very happy to support you in that way. I mean, earlier this year, we did at the back end of last year, we did some research as to why businesses work with us. And, one of the core things that we found out was that we take the headache away of, planning and finding the right people for the booth, because we actually do all that for them, and they don't actually have to worry about doing personality checks or things like that. So small things like that can actually make a huge difference. It's always very, very important to ask your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things you mentioned there was talking to the event organisers to try and find out how many of the target audience that you're looking for are likely to be visiting the show. And again, sometimes I think exhibitors can get a little bit scared of talking to the event organisers. It feels like it's a very transactional conversation about, that's the space, let's just haggle over the price, and don't necessarily think, what more value can I get out of an organiser? So, it really is okay to go and speak to organisers and say, this is who I'm looking for. Can you provide me with these people at your show? That they would kind of welcome that discussion, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Not enough exhibitors actually talk to the organisers, and they're very much seen as somebody who wants to sell you space and forget all about you. But organisers can be your best friend, because they can give you valuable data that you can use in your exhibition booth, in your process, in your exhibiting process. So, it's very much a partnership, because if you do well at the show, then the organizer will have a happy client, and you'll come back and you'll exhibit again. So it's in their best interest to support you as well. So I would always encourage exhibitors to, when they engage with the organizer, to ask a lot of questions about their target audience, and then you can actually segment, how you're going to actually approach the different types of people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you know who that target audience is, it actually gives you an easier conversation to say no to an event organizer that's trying to get you to book a stand. So rather than kind of fobbing them off with oh yeah, we haven't really got the budget, or we're not sure about it this year, you can really clearly state back to an event organizer, actually, your show doesn't deliver the audience that I'm looking for. And that organizer's kind of got nowhere to go then. So they can't keep pestering you or chasing you, whichever phrase you want to use. It's a much easier conversation just to say, I'm really sorry, your show doesn't deliver for me. But there might be another event in that organizer's portfolio that's perfect for what you're looking for. So it's worth a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned about saying no. Again, when you're planning the activity for your exhibition, having those numbers available will actually help you with your engagement activities. So one thing we always encourage exhibitors to do is look at work backwards in trying to figure out how many hellos they need to physically say to get the number of clients that will actually give them the return on investment. So, and if the number of hellos far exceed the number of the suitable target audience attendees that you will have, then obviously you can say that, look, it's not enough for us to actually justify exhibiting at the show, because the numbers don't make sense.
Yeah. And that is such a great point when we start working with clients of ours about setting smart objectives early on in the process, all of those numbers help you work out whether it's actually going to be a good investment for you. Because if you work out there's only going to ever be a maximum of 20 people, for example, that are relevant to you for a show, then if you're only selling something at like £2 per product, there's no way you're going to get your money back. But actually, if the sale's going to bring you in £1 million, that could return quite a good profit for you. So it really helps you start to work out you don't need many people, you just need the right people with the right spending power.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I've gone to events where, I remember a long time ago, I'm not sure if you remember, Nicola, there used to be the exhibiting show.
Yes, a long time ago.
We exhibited there, and we actually only got one fantastic lead from it. Obviously, we got other leads, but it only took that one client, and we've been working with that client now for over 10 years, and we do about 30 events a year. So having spent that, just getting that one lead has been actually paying off dividends. So sometimes it's just worthwhile. And it all boils down to, knowing your numbers in terms of your average customer value, what the show is going to cost you, and how many clients you would actually need from the show. Sometimes it's only one client that you need to break even. And, and then the other thing that you need to think about as well is when you're looking at your target audiences, you need to look at the buying cycle. How long will it take for that customer, for that prospect to actually buy from you? Because a lot of exhibitors have long sales cycles. So we work with clients with sales cycles of anything between 2 weeks up to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing when you will actually get that money back is quite important too, because it's quite easy to dismiss a show and say, oh, you didn't get any business, when you could actually close a piece of business from the same show in 2 years' time. So you need to know those timescales as well.
And also how that's going to be tracked in your business, because who in 3 years' time is going to remember that the initial contact for that win, that sale, came from a show 3 years ago? So.
Absolutely, yeah. So you need that tracking process, you need the measurement in place, and we can have a chat about that later on.
The next episode of the podcast, we to come back in the future and talk to us about that one.
Yeah.
So Lee, you mentioned just previously in that conversation about digital marketing and personas and how people are working on digital marketing. So do you think there's a difference in a target audience that you would look for at a show or an exhibition versus the target audience for, say, digital marketing or PR or some other kind of marketing tactic? And if there is a difference, what is that and why is it?
That's a very good question. I wish I knew the answer to that. My feeling is that your target audience is your target audience, and the key thing is knowing how you can actually help them. And digital marketing, obviously, you're sending out messages, you're educating people, but you can't actually talk to them like you can in a face-to-face environment. So what you need to do is have a different kind of approach in knowing. So with digital marketing, you send out all the messages, you put podcasts together, for example, that we're doing right now. You put case studies, but it's a one-way conversation because you're throwing it all out. With face-to-face engagement, the key difference is that you actually get to talk to your prospects. So what you need to know is, the first thing is the right questions to ask, because you can't, digital marketing is all about push. With face-to-face, the most important thing is that you're actually pulling in the information, and then you're actually matching that to the customers, to your target audience's requirements. And again, that's a big mistake that a lot of exhibitors make. And I talked about build it and they will come mentality. The key thing that we try to focus on with our exhibitors is that, for the first few minutes, they shouldn't even talk about themselves, and actually get to know who that person is in front of you, so that you can actually provide a personalized message to them. So knowing what type of questions you need to ask to actually understand them better, actually know how you can actually help them, rather than actually pushing how brilliant your service is, because that's kind of, you've heard of the old phrase, stick enough mud on a wall and some of it might stick.
Yes.
Yeah. So the key difference is that when you're talking to people face-to-face at an exhibition, if you're asking the questions, you're gathering enough intel to help you push the right message and actually create that engagement. Because if you're making it personal for that attendee, what you're doing is you're giving them more reasons to talk to you, continue the conversation, and make a compelling case for that person to do business with you after the event, or to connect with you after the event and take it to the next level.
Yeah, so definitely what you're saying there is target audience stays the same largely. Yeah. It's consistent regardless of which marketing tactic you're using. The way you engage and converse with them is very different. And, we would agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. And, it's definitely about trying to understand their needs and their problems before you start to go in with the old hard sell Hank technique of pushing your product on somebody. So I just wanted to ask your advice on this one for our listeners. So the one thing that really winds me up at exhibitions is when you walk onto a stand and you can see somebody who's working on that booth that's clearly giving you the old glance of your badge to see if you're important enough to talk to. And there's nothing more off-putting than them thinking, I've already ruled you out because you're not a director of the company that I'm looking for. And they've already dismissed you. You feel really downhearted then and don't really want to carry on the conversation. So what are some great questions that exhibitors can ask very early on to open up that conversation and start getting that evidence that that visitor is somebody that is within their target audience and therefore worth them spending some time with? What's your best opening lines?
Okay. The best opening line, first of all, is what brings you to the show? Okay. And that gets them talking, so that shows you why they're there at the show. Are they collecting information? Are they there to learn something? And then obviously get to know them a bit personally, or you can say to them, what great things have you picked up on this show? Have you picked up any new tips or new ways of working, or what cool technology have you seen? So just to get an understanding of whether they are really there for the right reasons, okay, at the event. And then ask them about their job in terms of what do they do, one of the best questions that an exhibitor can ask is, what current challenges are you facing in your job role? Yeah, and that will open up a whole conversation and actually give you all the clues that you want, whether that person is worth carrying on the conversation with or not. Because if you know what their challenges are and you've got the right solutions to overcome those challenges, then that conversation will be a lot more compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the question you mentioned there in terms of, what else have you seen on the show floor today that's really interested you, or, that you were impressed by? Because exhibitors say to us, well, why would I waste my time asking about somebody else's show or somebody else's stand, that kind of thing? And you just sort of think, well, you can get so much evidence from that and so much information about, what somebody's looking for, what they're interested in. And it shows then it might just give you some things that you can have another conversation with. If you're aware of what the big thing on the show floor is, it just shows you've got a bit more exposure than just your own little stand. But it's one that exhibitors so often miss, but it's so useful in getting insight into what somebody's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as you know, Nicola, industries are always very insular, and they love helping each other out, from my own perspective anyway, because if you're in an industry and everybody's together in that industry, they want to make sure that they, as an industry, support everyone to be better. So if you're asking those type of questions, not only does it give you more credibility, and it doesn't make you look like a salesperson that's trying to sell them something, it actually puts you as a person who's very knowledgeable about the industry, and you can also learn about the trends and what's kind of important to that person in front of you, because if they're talking passionately about something that they've actually seen at another stand, then you know that you can actually relate to that kind of topic and hopefully get them interested in terms of how you can actually support them or help them. Even with the other product, you can actually maybe create value-add services around that product if they're interested in buying what they've seen somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to apologise to our listeners at the moment if you're getting any squeaks picking up from Lee on his line at all. We are recording this in the middle of Storm Dennis, so apologies. He's on the top of a hill somewhere in Manchester, so there's lots of hail and wind, and we've got rain beating down in our windowed office, so apologies if you're picking up a few squeaks and squawks from us at the moment, but blame climate change, I think. But that's definitely a topic for another podcast. So the killer point, Lee, we've talked about how you can recognise your target audience, how you engage with them, how you can invest time in them to get useful information. What's your best advice for when you've done that and realise that this person isn't in your target audience, is no value to you whatsoever? There's never going to be a business relationship, but they're still rabbiting onto you. How do you get rid of them from your stand? What's your best dispatch techniques?
I used to watch a show called The David Letterman Show late night. And when he would finish his interviews, the first thing he used to do is look in their eyes and say, Brad, thank you for coming on the show. It was great to meet you. Enjoy the rest of the evening. And that's all you need to do is make eye contact, smile, and say, David, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure to meet you. I have somebody else to see, but it was great to meet you. Put your hand out, shake his hands, and do the robot walk away.
We are so with you on that one. It's the one question we get asked most on the workshops and training that we do. And I think just being very British, we're very polite and we don't like upsetting people and we don't like to not give people the time if they're happily talking away. But actually, you're not there to make friends, you're there to do business. And there's nothing wrong with very politely and professionally just saying, great to see you. I'm really sorry I've got an appointment. Have a great show, turning around and walking away.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, our staff get this problem all the time because they're very engaging and they obviously start asking questions, and obviously sometimes people can take that the wrong way. So what you need to do is once you've done all of the engagement process, so you've asked the questions, you've agreed the next steps, then obviously it's time for you both to move on. And you need to be polite and say, well, look, we've got other things to do now. And imply that with your body language, with smile. But you don't need to be rude about it or anything like that. People realize that you're there for a reason. There's people walking about, people that you need to see. So there's no reason for people to get upset unless they are Billy no mates and they've got no one else to talk to. Or they're freebie collectors and they can't get anything else out of you. So.
Yeah, and there's still many of those around in exhibitions. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but like I say, once you've done your, and I think obviously your booth team needs to be fully informed that, look, these are our objectives. And if you have these objectives from the outset and that you know that you have to say hello to X number of people, then that makes the whole process a lot easier, where you're not scratching around for people to talk to, because you know that you've got a target to hit and you've got to process people very quickly as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So stacks of advice you've shared there in quite a short sort of 20-25 minutes actually, so there's loads that our listeners can take away, obviously picked up from years and years of experience around the show floor. Is there any show in the world anywhere that you've not yet visited that you think, God, I'd love to go to that one? Or have you done everything that you want to do?
I've pretty much done everything. So I've been to food shows, I've been tech shows, I've been aviation shows, I've been to construction shows. So pretty much every industry. I think the one show that I love with a passion is CES, but it always comes at the beginning of January. and it's always the wrong time to travel. But I love that show. And another show that I absolutely love is Gulf Food in Dubai, because you always come back.
At the moment, actually.
Yeah.
Closing today.
It's closing today. And the great thing about that show is the engagement levels are really good, because there's nothing more brilliant than to engage people than food. And all different kinds of food. So you always come away with, 10 pounds more on your balance.
You're lucky if it's only £10.
Yeah, so that's always a fantastic show. And I think it's pretty much a lot of them. You actually learn so much about the people and the different kinds of level. I think that's, for me, in the last 12 years being in the exhibition industry, is working with such a diverse range of clients has actually taught me a lot. So we work across the globe. I've learned so much about cars, about aviation, about needles, that you use to deliver drugs. We were working with a client that manufactures needles for drug delivery, and the most interesting thing I learned was that the pinpoint of the needle is as sharp as they actually model the technology on a mosquito bite.
Yes, I've read that somewhere, I think. Yeah.
So that was, and it's an amazing client of ours, because they love the engagement process, and we always do something different every year as well. So it's little things like that really gives me a buzz about working in the exhibition industry. And previously to Expo Stars, I never lasted more than 4 or 5 years in a job. But having stuck with the industry for 12 years, I must be having fun, right?
Absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right about the variety, being kind of consultants or trainers, support companies as we are to the exhibition industry. Just today we've been working on the emergency services show, so looking at disasters and recovery and rescue, and then we've hopped over to the W exhibition, doing some work for them on a programme that's looking at joinery and furniture making and cabinetry, and then we've got the UK food shows coming up in a few weeks, and we've got a client going out to Germany that works on gear systems. So it is just that continual process of jumping from project to project and thinking, I didn't realise people had jobs like this. I didn't realise somebody actually made that stuff. It is just a fantastic industry to just learn about how big the world actually is.
Oh, absolutely. No 2 days are the same. So
yes,
every day. The great thing about it is we work on an international level. So it's not only just about the industries, but it's also about the cultures and how different people, how they do business, and getting to learn about their mindsets and things like that. And it's just a brilliant way to learn about everything. And I wake up every morning, and it's some people try to fake it till they make it, but with us we don't need to do that.
I'm so with you on that one. But one thing I just wanted to pick up with you on before we finish today is you mentioned the kind of international context that we work in exhibitions, and obviously at the moment there's a lot of concern about the coronavirus and its impact on exhibitions, and I think I'd heard you mention earlier in the week that it's had an impact on some of your clients. So how are you finding things in the industry with coronavirus at the moment, and how are people responding to it?
For us in the exhibition industry, I think the watershed moment was the cancellation of the Mobile World Congress. Before that, we kind of hoped it wouldn't affect us, but obviously the Mobile World Congress put paid to that. And I think from my perspective, it's a lot of fake news. There's a lot of fake news and scaremongering going on. And I have some conspiracy theories which I won't go into.
That's definitely another podcast.
But face-to-face will always continue. And obviously, people are quite rightly scared. With the Mobile World Congress, a lot of the big companies pulled out, and it's okay for them because they've got large budgets and they can easily write off one show. But it was a very bad, thing for independent suppliers like us, because we depend. The Mobile World Congress is a massive payday once a year for everyone. I think there's 15,000 people that work at the show. There's all the hotels, and I think to Barcelona it brings in about 500 million pounds of revenue every year to all the restaurants and the hotels and the local economy. So that gives you a wake-up call, and just think how important exhibitions are to the livelihood of all the cities around the globe, and to all the small independent companies like us. You've got stand suppliers, you've got carpet suppliers, you've got so many people in the chain, and it takes something like a Mobile World Congress to realize that you only need 2 or 3 shows not to happen, and then all of a sudden you're out of business. So we're looking at the situation very closely, because we work on an international level, and we've already been affected with clients not going overseas. And there was a statement out from UFI actually supporting, saying, look, show organisers will do everything in their power to ensure the cleanliness and and having read the statistics just on Monday that coronavirus only affects the weak and the frail, I think that's where the scaremongering has really got out of hand. And the seasonal flu actually kills more people. And when you think about exhibitions, frail people or ill people don't normally visit them anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't got many 80-year-olds walking around exhibition halls. Although if you're an 80-year-old that loves exhibitions, then please come on the show and talk to us.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm glad that the industry is coming to its sense, and I was very happy to see that shows like Go Food and like Euroshop in Germany, they're 2 massive shows, and they've carried on as per normal. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but obviously we have to keep our eye on the news, and fingers crossed it doesn't affect us anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And our thoughts are with anybody who was affected by the cancellation of Mobile World Congress or who is impacted by coronavirus. But I think the overwhelming message is be sensible, stick to the plan, almost carry on as normal. All the things that you would normally do, like sneezing into a handkerchief and washing your hands and all that kind of stuff, just keep doing it, and we'll probably all be okay. Absolutely.
And the key thing is obviously to look at your business as well, and keep on doing the things that you're doing, because it will pick up again. And yes, it's bad times, but we survived the great big recession of 2007, 2008. We've survived the financial crises, the banking crises, and all of that. So if businesses can actually survive that, then we can survive this as well.
Yeah, and it goes right back to that point we were talking about earlier on, in terms of knowing why your customers value you and what benefit you bring, and just keep reminding people of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your business will be fine. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the key thing. And we internally had a discussion last week, because we were discussing what the implications are if more shows cancel. And, we came to the conclusion that let's continue as per normal. And just be positive and stick with the business model that we have, and just be positive. And luckily enough, this week, well, guess what, business is now back to normal, and people are realizing that business, let's carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, it has been fantastic chatting to you this afternoon. Thank you so much, Lee, for your time. If people want to get hold of you, where can they find you?
They can find us on all over social media. So if they type in Expo Stars, they probably know of us already, I think.
Who doesn't know of Expo Stars?
Absolutely. And then also on our website, www.expostars.com. And they can reach me on LinkedIn. Just type in Expo Stars and my profile will come up as well. And if anyone wants further advice about target audiences or about anything psychological or even...
anything psychological? That's one big offer you've just made there. Should we quantify that with anything psychological relating to filtering visitors?
Yeah, trade show engagement.
Yeah, that clarifies that. Please do not get in touch with Lee with all your psychological problems.
Well, having said that, I am a business coach and a mentor as well. So if any small business owners want to reach out and get some advice about growing their business, then I'm always open to those conversations.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed speaking to you, and good luck with everything for the future.
Thank you very much, Nicola. It was a pleasure.
That was actually the second recording we did of that podcast, because on the first one, we talked for about an hour and 20 minutes and covered every single topic going in the exhibition landscape, and kind of thought, this is probably a bit confusing for our listeners, so let's just go back and focus on one thing. But it's great to speak to people who have so much in common with us in terms of our values and what we're trying to achieve. So thank you, Lee, for your time. We really appreciate it. So that's it for this episode of the Exhibitionist Podcast. Thank you once again for listening. We know some people are heading down to International Confex this week, which is moving to Excel. So if you're down there, have an amazing show. It is a key highlight in the industry calendar. Unfortunately, we can't make it due to some prior commitments with client work. But if you are there, have a brilliant time. However, we will be at XL next week at HRC, Hotel Restaurant Catering, with a number of clients doing some mystery visits and having a look around stands. So if you're going to be at HRC and fancy a coffee, why not give us a shout? We would love to meet you and see what has caught your eye on the show floor. As I alluded to at the top of the show, we will be sending those links out to the Exhibitions 2025 survey from today, and it'll be all over social media. So please do get involved and give us your views on that. And as always, you can get in touch with us via the website www.inspiringexhibitors.com, where you can find all of our services, but also pick up a copy of the Exhibitionist book and Project Manager Journal now that is back in stock. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Have a fantastic couple of weeks in the meantime, and happy exhibitioning.
Hop over now to inspiringexhibitors.com to subscribe to our newsletters, blogs and future podcasts, keeping you up to date with industry insight. While there, you can also find out more about The Exhibitionist, inspiring trade show excellence. Once again, thank you for listening.